Well, the nasty weather outside is an indicator at just how crucial the games in the Canadian Football League are getting as we welcome you into our latest episode of First and Now. The official BC Lions podcast is brought to you by World Vision Canada, national charity partner of the BC Lions. Visit bclions.com/World Vision to become a supporter. And we've announced in the last few days, Nikki, that Bola Cumbo will donate $200 to World Vision Canada for every Lions quarterback sack the rest of the year. This defensive line has been playing great, so we like the outlook there. How goes it?
Refreshed right now. We're off a bye week. Saw a lot of the guys go home this weekend. We got out on a little, I think you had a staycation, right? But I had a unbelievable vacation, and it made for a great week.
It looked like it. Your first time at the Oregon coast?
Yeah. But yeah, I think everybody in this organization is feeling refreshed, right? We're down to the crunch. It's a pretty damn good time to have a bye, right? Just in terms of like the actual calendar year, and feeling good.
Yeah, was not able to go anywhere, and that's fine. Tried to do some responsibilities stuff around chores around the home, and started to clean out our storage locker with stuff we don't need anymore, but
fun.
Lasted about half an hour, and then we'll do this over the Christmas break.
And then over Christmas break, you'll push it into 2025.
Then we'll push it to before training camp, and then it'll be next bye week, and before you know it, it'll be 2026. We'll be playing a bunch of road games to start the year. Let's not go down that far. But yes, it was. And think of the stretch, right? I mean, kind of not really a full bye week at the end of July, and we touchdown Pacific, then Montreal in a short week, Ottawa before touchdown Pacific. And
70th season.
70th season. Loved Wall of Fame night. Just awesome to see the 2000 Grey Cup team back getting honored at halftime. But yeah, I mentioned it, and we're going to talk about this time of year later and go for it or punt. I am anyway. But yeah, we're recording this on Wednesday, and when this is done, I got to go out to practice, and I did not pack a second change of clothes like I normally do on days like this. Maybe you're just not used to it returning like this yet, but the weather means that the games are getting more important, like I hit on off the top. Just 4 games to go. We're going to talk to Glen Suitor from TSN in a few minutes, but this West Division tightening up. Lions alone in second place now. Just have to get back in the win column. Get one step closer to punching a playoff ticket. I believe, if my math is right, they can do it as soon as next week, but have to take care of business this week against a very improved Hamilton Tiger Cat team. It's crunch time right now.
Yeah, and the talk of the town right now, obviously on Monday, Rick Campbell declaring that Nathan Rourke will be the starting quarterback moving forward. Obviously commented too that if Vernon Adams Jr. needs to come in, he'll be ready for that situation. We all know that player Vernon is, he will be prepared, but it's Nathan's team right now, moving forward with that. And the team's also looking to get a couple of roster enhancements too, right? The bye week served a little well. So Tyler Packer's back practicing at his left guard spot, beside Chris Slugger at the left tackle spot. So the O-line's looking healthy. Ben Haladek's back out there, obviously with his calf injury this past month kind of lingering and keeping him out.
Reinforcements, yep.
So he's going to look to fill in and add to that duo of Ryder Varga and Ace Sealy in the middle there. And Jalen Edwards-Cooper is practicing. That's another guy we're excited about. Anybody?
Sorry to cut in, but I was going to say the first thing I noticed you weren't here, but Sunday, a little bit of an install walkthrough. Oh, Jalen's out at corner. Interesting. And that's probably going to be at the expense of Seontae Evans, but that's why you bring in all these bodies, right? And I'm looking forward to seeing what Jalen brings.
And I think Jalen's going to bring exactly what this defense needs, right? You talk there, some of the media has been kind of been negative about the BC Lions tackling on defense at times, right? It's subpar at times, and I think Jalen's one of the best tackling DBs in the league. And then on the flip side, you got Matty Rugamba and Gary Peters in the boundary, and I think they're 2 elite tacklers. But those moves also result in TJ Lee being added to the box at that Sam linebacker position. We obviously know what he can do as a tackler. He's done it his whole career with his low angle of gravity there. But overall, the secondary, it's gelling well together. And those are words to the ears of Rick Campbell and this coaching staff when you talk about the stretch run coming up.
Yeah, Jalen, of course, really came into his own last year. Career highs in tackles, I think. Had a touchdown off a block kick in a win against Montreal, was it? So as a result, he got paid pretty nicely in free agency by Saskatchewan. Obviously, his injury situation wasn't quite healed yet, and maybe that played a role in him getting cut loose. But he's back here now, and looking for this defense to make a big early statement. All the focus is on Nathan Rourke and the offense, and I get all that, but it was a full team performance, or lack thereof, in the loss to Toronto. Everyone has to rise up, all three phases. Complementary football, it's an overused term, but it applies here. So, and they better, because this Hamilton Tiger Cats team, Nick, is one that is vastly different than the one we saw in the first week of July. Remember last Hamilton week, we had Steve Milton from ticats.ca on here, and he was talking about, you know, a lot of the good things they were doing despite having a winless record was not good enough. You are what your record says you are, but they've won 3 in a row. Their defense has been solid, 7 turnovers over the course of this 3-game winning streak. They've scored over 100 points over that span. Bo Levi Mitchell, a nice little story this year, leading the CFL in passing after battling for playing time. He's dealt with injuries and benchings, and you love to see a guy like that get back to what he's been capable of doing, but this will be a tough one. Yeah,
they're hot at the right time, right? And that's why they're still alive. The dialogue is much different if Mark Leggio misses that game-winning field goal last week to put them to 4-10, but they're 5-9 now, and they're well alive to make a little playoff run here down the stretch. And it's their offense right now. They're first in yards per play, first in offense of yards per game, top 3 in points per game. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they were behind in these games and obviously did get off to that 2-9 start, so they're trailing, and that's why they're airing it out. But at the same time, like, watch the games, and they're moving the ball, right? Bo Levi Mitchell is looking as good as he ever has, and he has some new weapons. Shamar Bridges has kind of been that consistent guy all year round for them.
Leading receiver.
Yeah, true rookie too in the CFL. I know he broke Jalen Saunders' record I saw last week for I think most receptions by a rookie receiver in Hamilton. Tim White's kind of coming along. Stephen Dunbar's underrated as always. Keandre Smith's a good weapon for them. So they're pretty loaded at receiver. And then
Giovanni Robinson.
Yeah, we got to bring up Giovanni too. The hurdle, the touchdown, the dunk on the touchdown, the Matthew Shinetti interview. He was having a day last week in Toronto. But the running back position too I'm looking at, because Greg Bell, someone who actually replaced James Butler this past month, he was nicked up with a heel injury. He was limited in practice this week. So as of right now, we don't know if it's going to be James Butler returning back to BC again, or if it's going to be Greg Bell, right? So they got some weapons there. But yeah, offensively, they're moving the football, and it's going to be a tough task for this Lions defense.
Yeah, and this Hamilton team, what that win in Toronto did was pretty much everything. Had they not pulled it out, they would have to run the table and have Toronto lose out to have a shot at making the playoffs in the East anyway. Pretty much impossible. Adios. See ya. But I think it's still a tall task for them to end up in, because we've seen Chad Kelly and the Argonauts, when they're playing up to their capabilities, they can be a pretty complete team, as we've seen a couple of times, even though the first time was in there with Cameron Dukes back in week 1. But a Lions win this week means they cannot be caught by Hamilton for a crossover. Hamilton still very much in the mix for an Eastern crossover. Never happened in the history of the CFL. All 12 crossover teams in history going from the West Division. But I mentioned it, a win this week, and you could almost start planning playoff clinching scenarios. I think if the Lions get to 9 wins, they would somehow be in regardless. They would for sure be in by winning the next 2 and having Edmonton or Saskatchewan, I believe, lose this week or next week. So 9 wins is going to get the Lions in. There's 4 games to go. They have 2 more wins to get there. Now, 9-9, not necessarily going to get you a home game, and that's one step at a time. But yes, just have to get back to playing complementary football like we talked about. And I expect this team to rise up. I really do. The bye week came at a right time. We've talked about some guys been struggling on the injury front, have a chance to get back, if not this week, maybe next week. A guy like David Mackey, maybe he's close to returning. So just have to go out there and prove it now.
One other note, too, that relates to Mackey, and I've just been noticing by watching practice this week, is like Jordan Terrell's still getting some snaps, and that's the backup running back that came in at the end of that Argos game, scored his first touchdown, looked really good. So while the fact that Mackey is still a little dinged up with his lower body injury may be a factor into Terrell maybe staying on the roster, he also may have forced the coaches no choice by being able to keep them on the roster, right? And another thing too, we were beating this drum last week. You got to take advantage of these home games, right? The Lions are 4-2 at home, even with that loss last week. But start of the season 4-0. BC Place has become a tough place to play. It's a loud place to play, obviously, with the big crowds coming in. So got to pack this building out for the Orange Shirt Day game here on Friday. And welcome in Hamilton and take it to them.
Yeah, more on the Orange Shirt Day game, 4th annual, presented by Prospera Credit Union, BC Hydro, Liuna Local 1611. 7:30 kickoff. Proud to pay respect to Canada's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, now a federal holiday, of course, September 30th. That's Monday. Both teams will have their Indigenous logos. All 9 teams have it this year. I love them all.
Yep.
Ours is the best, obviously. Shout out to Corinne Hunt and a special edition by Tanner Timothy, The Pause. Check out bclions.com. Stephen Chang spoke to Tanner. There's an article there explaining the additions to that. First 10,000 fans will get the new shirt. Has the pause on the sleeves. Very sharp. We both wore ours already at least once. We're going to donate $20,000 to the Orange Shirt Society as well, hosting a couple of hundred residential school survivors and their families. And did we mention? Yes, we did, but we'll mention it again. Get there early. First 10,000 fans through the gates will get an orange t-shirt. Paddling Together serving as this year's theme, as the football club proud to showcase teamwork and people coming together to honor truth and reconciliation. And some special things planned inside the Indigenous Marketplace is back on the concourse. Always good to check out. And props to the entire organization for spearheading this campaign back in 2021. Glen Suitor will be on the call with Farhan Lalji. We'll get Suits' assessment of this Lions team, a roller coaster season, his thoughts on the improved Tiger Cats. Maybe go around the league a little bit with Suits, talk possible award winners. Coming up on First and Now. Presented by World Vision Canada. And we are thrilled to welcome in now, I don't know where you begin. He's a Canadian Football Hall of Fame inductee. I believe that took place in Regina, was there at the Casino Regina where all the Hall of Famers were getting together. Grey Cup champion, longtime analyst with TSN, of course. The one and only Glen Suitor joining us. Suits, you're in North Van, obviously, so I'm guessing the rain's coming down there on this lovely Wednesday as well?
Yeah, yes. And I just took my brand new golden retriever puppy. His name is Maximus, out for a walk in the rain. So that's why I'm kind of bundled here with my hat, my CFL logo.
There you go.
Good to go. But yeah, looking forward to the game on Friday night.
Yeah, and we're very much going to dive into that. 2 teams that should be playing desperate, need to, well, Hamilton's been in the win column with 3 straight. Our team, of course, little hot and cold lately, but still not by far nothing decided yet. And I want to start there. Do you recall a season like this, Glenn, where it was this wide open? I mean, the West Division, 3 teams separated by 3 points. The top of the East, the middle of the East could be a lot to determine left final playoff spots. What's your read on it?
Yeah, I have never, seen the West Division this deep into the season, the regular season, be this close, where, any team could still host a playoff game, basically. I mean, right now the Bombers have the edge in that West final look, and the Lions are certainly not out of that fight. But, when you look at how tight the standings are in the West, I don't think I've ever seen it. We're getting ready to turn the corner to October here with 1 month left of regular season football. And you could still make an argument for Saskatchewan, Edmonton, even, who started 0-7. So, it's tight. It makes it excellent for the fans and all the different markets. Their team is still definitely in it for a playoff picture. And I'll add this, when you talk about the East, the crossover possibility for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, talking about Friday, is still alive. And that's never happened in CFL history, where a team crossed over from the East to the Western playoffs.
Yeah, and that's a scenario this week, a win for the Lions, and they cannot be caught for that crossover. It's still very much alive for Hamilton, and trying to crunch these numbers. Steve Daniel has all the scenarios. I believe there's a path where the Lions can clinch in the next couple of weeks. Got to take care of business this week first. But this Tiger Cat team, Suits, we went there in early July, kept Hamilton winless, 0-5. There was all kinds of questions. What do you think has been the main catalyst to Hamilton's turnaround?
Well, twofold. One is I think they're buying into a new head coach in Scott Milenovich. And when I say that, I don't mean that it's been a contentious locker room or anything like that. It's just, the new approach, new philosophies, new priorities that a new coach brings to the table. Sometimes you have to be a little bit patient with the entire team buying in. The evolution of Bo Levi Mitchell, I think, even though he's a veteran, has been an interesting one for Hamilton. When I go back and think about Scott Milenovich as the head coach in Toronto back in 2012, he had a veteran Hall of Famer in Ricky Ray, and it took Ricky Ray half a season to understand the nuance of the Scott Milenovich offense and what they were looking for. So I think Bo's gone through a very similar evolution, and now he's back on top of his game. And because of that, staying on the field longer, keeping his defense fresh, the defense with Chris Jones being part of that organization now. Say what you want about Chris Jones as a head coach, but guys, as a defensive coordinator, he has been a mastermind. He really has. He's been a guy who's been innovative, who simplifies and yet makes it very difficult on offenses. So I think all of those things are part of the turnaround for Hamilton.
And Glenn, I guess we'll keep talking about this Ticats team before we delve into the Lions. But watching them the past couple of weeks, or even all season, remember how bad of a start Tim White got off to and how surprising that was. But then there's been some newcomers like Shamar Bridges coming up and been that consistent top target guy. As of Wednesday morning, we don't know if it's going to be Greg Bell or James Butler in the backfield. What do you make of these new additions for Hamilton, I guess, this season, and who should Lions fans be looking out for come Friday?
Yeah, well, that's the interesting part too, is that Tim White thing. It doesn't matter what level you're playing at, and if there's young football players and minor football listening right now, keep this in mind always, that sometimes you have issues where self-doubt creeps in. Even if you're a veteran star player, you have to fight that self-doubt and get back to your game. And the way you do that is going back to fundamentals. And the fundamentals of practice, how you come out of your breaks for Tim White's, in his case, just working on all the little details, then all of a sudden build up that. The more time you invest, it builds up that confidence. And then you go back and you become that player that you were and everyone expects you to be. So, I think that was an issue where the entire team was looking at it going, what's going on here? In fact, the Lions can look at some of that with some of their veterans where you're thinking, wait a minute, guys, you're so much better than this. Your resume shows it. What's happening? Why has there been ups and downs in tackling with the BC Lions on defense? That they're a veteran team in a lot of spots that haven't tackled consistently enough to get offenses off the field and help them win games. And so those are a little bit of head scratchers, but it's true of pros as it is of amateurs and of rookies and of young guys. Fight it off, stick with the fundamentals, and that confidence will come back.
When it comes to the Lions kind of being up and down this season too, the 5-game win streak, the 5-game losing streak that you were kind of alluding to there, have you been able to, when you're watching the games this season, have you been able to pinpoint anything or any tell to why this team is on and why they're off some nights?
Yeah, it's been more of the head scratcher to me, guys, than any other team in the league, honestly, because of the way they started. And, I guess the return of Nathan and the injury to VA almost at the same time, where that really sort of put their offense in a rebuild. That's the wrong way to say it, because Nathan knew the offense, but into being a little more patient. They had to be patient again to get back to the timing of Nathan with really a new set of receivers for him. Justin McInnis wasn't part of the Lions organization when he was here a couple of years ago, as you guys know. So he's got to get some confidence and rhythm with different receivers. And at the time, Keon wasn't back yet, I don't believe. So there was that. So it's been a little bit difficult. Like in some of the ones, as far as me putting my finger on one or two things, it really hasn't been. There's been a game where the secondary didn't tackle well. And because of that, they were on the field too long and they run out of opportunities offensively. There was a couple of times where there was some drops. There was a couple of times when Nathan wasn't seeing it and throwing it like we know he can. So when you pick and choose little things like that, it's not to point a finger at anybody. It's just to say kind of guys and position groups have taken their turn. And, now the rubber's meeting the road. It's time to, put all those discussion and excuses aside, believe in each other. And I'm sure they will. You guys know how I feel about Nathan Rourke. You know how I feel about Vernon Adams. I think there are two first-class individuals and tremendous football players. And as long as they're on the roster, you've got a chance to win a championship.
Yeah, Murphy's Law, though, right? Second half before a bye week, so the questions linger for a few days. Vernon gets the second half, but Rick Campbell has said that was just a team decision. The whole team needed kind of a spark, I think is the word he used over and over again. But I know you've just talked glowingly about Nathan here, but just given the circumstances he came in, just 48 hours after being let go, he's here, and all of a sudden he's preparing to face Winnipeg of all teams. And maybe it was asking a lot for him to come light it up right away, but just your thoughts on how he's progressed week by week, Suits.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would be asking a lot of Warren Moon or Doug Flutie or Ricky Ray or any of the greatest quarterbacks in CFL history or even NFL history to say, here are two practices, even though you know the terminology of the offense, here's a practice and a half, and go and face one of the top defenses over the last 3 or 4 years in the league. It was a lot to ask, and that's not to give Nathan an alibi or an excuse. Again, I think he felt like he had enough grasp on what the game plan was to go out and try and execute. But I love the way Coach has handled this quarterback room, because I grew up in a system that had two great quarterbacks in it as well, in Tom Burgess and Kent Austin back in Saskatchewan. And the reason it worked and the reason that we were a championship team in '89 was because they made it work. The two quarterbacks made it work. The two quarterbacks never made it divisive. They made sure that they were supporting each other. And they knew that the coach at times might make a change to provide the spark that you mentioned, Matt. I mean, it's not an indictment on you as a player. I make the analogy sometimes of relief pitchers. Your starter goes out there and he's not got his best stuff, and you go with the reliever. You go to the bullpen, and it doesn't mean your starter isn't your starter. It just means on that particular night, in that particular moment, the coach had a gut feeling that let's try the reliever. Let's go to the bullpen. So I think they both handled it very well. Certainly, VA. Being on the side that he's on in this discussion, has been a first-class teammate, and I expect nothing less from him, because you guys know him well. I know him well. That's the type of person he is.
You've talked a minute ago about Justin McInnis and his kind of elevated role, and he's got our vote if we had one for most outstanding Canadian. We're a little biased, obviously, but other newcomers or guys who have been developed by this organization in particular, guys like Varga, Tavai, Ely, Kent, Christophe Beaulieu, Canadian draft pick coming in. What does it say about this organization that a lot of these newer pieces have come in and played big roles?
Yeah, I would add, Renee. I would add Gumba in that as well. I would add, and I think part of it is that your coaching staff, your management, they understand that the ratio is in place not to protect Canadian jobs, but to give Canadian world-class athletes an opportunity. And if they seize that opportunity and they feel as a staff that the young Canadian player is ready to take a starting role on, that they will not hesitate to put them in that position. And the best example of that is Nathan Rourke a couple of years ago. I mean, how many guys in the media said to Rick Campbell, wait a minute, you're starting a Canadian quarterback? Are Are you
Right.
sure? That was the number, not for me, but it was the number one question for a lot of the media. And he said, yeah, guys, watch him practice. This guy, and let me be clear, I think he'd be a Pro Bowler if given a real opportunity in the NFL. That's a different discussion for another time. But he just didn't get the opportunity because of the politics, and that's fine. It's happened down there a ton. And he's going to be an all-star up here, a perennial all-star. That's just my evaluation watching the game as long as I have from that position, and his processing speed, his accuracy, all of that. So I think that's the answer to your question, Matt. Is Matthew Betts, a star defensive end, gets his opportunity in Vancouver to be that guy, and he comes through. Ben Haladic is another example of a Canadian that may not on other teams get the same opportunity to become a starter like he did with Rick Campbell and this organization. So I think that respect for Canadians and their abilities has been a big reason for those newcomers showing what they can do.
Glenn, on the topic of all CFL, even awards now, there's 4 games to go for every team now. We're all at 14 games apiece. The MOP discussion's it's gaining a lot of chatter, obviously, and it's very interesting this year because there's really no clear-cut favorite and an abundance of candidates. So currently, what's your take on it? Is Bo Levi that guy? Does Justin McInnes have a chance? Can a defensive player get it? What's your whole take on the MOP right now?
Well, there's probably sort of what I think should happen and then what probably will happen. And they may be two different things, because I believe that a defensive player that has a big year should be as much in the conversation as any player on the field. And yet I think in reality, the media is often going to lean into the offensive stats, the touchdowns, the touchdown throws, those kind of things. And that's going to influence them in the voting a lot more. So, the answer to your question is some front runners. Justin McInnes is definitely one. I think Cody Fajardo will be talked about. Defensively, Roland Milligan and Tyrese Beverette in Montreal are leading the league in defensive plays overall and have been massive playmakers. I mean, when you look at Roland Milligan, something that I don't think is considered much in the voting at all is their special teams work, unless you're a big-time returner. And Roland's not that, but he's a cover guy, and he's led the league in special teams tackles while being a star on defense and putting up the numbers he's putting up. So that, to me, makes him a front runner for the MOP right now. And, you mentioned Bo, and I think he's leading the league, but, a lot of the starters, including Nathan, have been pulled at different times this year, which is very unique as well. So, I think that might influence the vote in reality. But I think the defensive players, guys, should definitely be, top of the list as number one in consideration right now. 1 and 2 probably. I'm not sure that will happen, though. I really am not sure. And Brady Oliveira is another guy I should bring up. If he finishes strong with 100-yard games to finish the season, then Oliveira is going to be around 1,400 or 1,500 yards, and I think he needs consideration too.
Plenty of great candidates out there, no doubt. Before we let you go, Suits, and we appreciate the time as you continue to prepare for your work slate, this Lions team to come out on top, what's a big key in your mind?
Yeah, I think balance offensively. I know that there's this temptation to just let Nathan Rourke just cut it loose and with a great accuracy and processing time that he has and try and hit some of those deep corner stuff. Not to say that explosion plays aren't necessary, but I love when I see balance, because as a former defensive player, I always remember thinking against guys like Anthony Calvillo and Mike Pringle together that they were so balanced in their attack, we never were sure what they're going to do. And when you're not sure defensively, you have a split second to make that decision, and that split second usually puts you behind a step. And when you're behind a step, that's when the big plays happen. So I think balance offensively, solid tackling on defense like they're capable of, and I think the Lions can get back on track. You guys know that I'm not a prediction guy. but,
Right.
but I think balance offensively is a good place to start.
There you go. We've let you dry off long enough until Maximus needs his next walk, so I think we got you covered there. And it's always great to talk football with you, Glenn, and we'll see you throughout this week. Definitely see you Friday.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen. We'll see you Friday. I'm looking forward to a great game.
Awesome.
Likewise.
Take care, Glenn.
Excellent stuff with the pride of North Vancouver, Carson Graham secondary, a massive football power in BC back in the day. Thanks to guys like Glen Suitor right there, Canadian Football Hall of Famer, of course. That was a cool thing. Cody and I in Regina 2 years ago, we went and did the live stream with the Markcast at the casino. And I'm like, what are all these guys doing here? It was like a cocktail hour for the Media Hall of Fame inductees. So Ed Willis was there, good friend of ours. Suitor was there. Was cool.
Good time, yeah. And Glenn's obviously a legend in the CFL world, right? I've grown up with him my entire life as a broadcaster, so always a privilege to talk to him. I love going around the league too. You know, we're going to see a guy like Roland Milligan in Saskatchewan in 2 weeks, and like Suitor said, he's been having a tremendous season, not only on defense, but on special teams, right? So a lot of star players here.
Just to backtrack quickly, on tap earlier in the year, we had Gary Peters on there at the Boston Pizza, and I can't remember if this was on the show or just in conversation, but we asked him, paraphrasing, other than yourself, who's the best DB in the league? And without hesitation, he said Roland Milligan, Saskatchewan. And now we've seen what he's done all year since then, and it's no surprise. It's going to be a great matchup in Saskatchewan in a couple weeks from now, boy, I tell you that. Anyway, one game at a time, and quickly talk Week 17 before we wrap it up with a little go for it or punt. Second game, it's the old overlapping doubleheader on Friday. If people wondering why is this a 7:30 start, well, Winnipeg hosting Edmonton at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Bombers going for the home and home sweep, and I think I outlined it, but Lions fans probably want Winnipeg to lose. No doubt they do, but if the Bombers win this and then the Lions win the next two, we would officially be in the playoffs. But I think we have to hope for McLeod, Bethel, Thompson, and company to get the split, because obviously first place still in the Lions' sights. They've made it hard on themselves, but tough spot for the Elks here. I think I read it's going to be another sellout at Princess Auto Stadium. The Bombers have won, 7 in a row. Defense is playing all world. I think 6 takeaways in Edmonton last week, but we shall see.
Yeah, and then there's the balance on offense, right? Brady Oliveira finally got into the end zone last week, which was one of the wildest CFL storylines, that he had not scored a touchdown yet. I know Chris Trevler played a role in that when he was healthy, but when the Bombers are averaging over 7 yards a carry last week like they were, and like you said, getting 6 takeaways, holding Edmonton to under 200 yards passing, or holding any team to under 200 yards passing, they're a dangerous team, and we've seen it firsthand the last couple so years here with them in the late season here. So like you said, it's going to be a tough spot for Edmonton. The quarterback change again, kind of another big storyline in the CFL season, and all the quarterback changes, whether injury related or performance related or whatever, right? So McLeod, Bethel, Thompson is the guy for the Elks on Friday, and loving the slate this week too. It starts off really well with here, and then BC Place, and then off we go to Saturday.
Well, let's talk about another quarterback change. Jeremiah Masoli getting the call for Ottawa in Saskatchewan. I think that's a noon our time game on Saturday. Do I have that correctly?
You are correct.
So, not always correct, but most of the time. Drew Brown, I hope he gets well soon. Another one of the quarterback feel-good stories in the league, but those ankle injuries could be scary. I expect him to maybe miss a bit of time, but we shall see. Saskatchewan got the weight off their backs by getting it done in Calgary. Riders enter this week just a point back of our Lions in this race to host a playoff game. I'm going to make a point of being in front of the TV to see how this one goes, not only for playoff potential purposes, but pretty good matchup despite Ottawa's injuries.
Yeah, if you want fireworks too, I think this is the game for you to tune in, because I look at a guy like Rock Armstead, obviously was with Ottawa this season, got released by them after Touchdown Pacific despite having some really strong numbers on the field, and then he gets picked up by Saskatchewan 4 days later, rushes for 200 yards at Calgary last week. Very talented player. and now he's going against his former team. So that's a big storyline. Ottawa also has to kind of get back onto their winning ways, obviously, with dropping a game to Montreal last week, quarterback change, like you said. And then shout out Justin Hardy too. I know we talked about him as one of the more underrated receivers in this league. He got to 1,000 yards, was the second guy to do it. He's kind of chasing Justin McInnis right now. So a little nice little receiver yardage race to end the season too. So see how that goes.
And then it all wraps up later, 4 o'clock Pacific Saturday, Toronto hosting Montreal. We've talked about the Argos off the top here. Their loss to Hamilton, and Ottawa dropping a couple of here. Toronto might be in a position to maybe make a run at second in the East. They've already beat Montreal once this season. So again, 1 week you see the championship version of the Argos, the other they stubbed their toe. That's just been a microcosm of the entire league, except Montreal, who's been running away with it in the East Division. But nice little Eastern matchup to wrap up the slate.
Yeah, and these teams have had a lot of good battles lately. The main event was kind of the 2023 East Final last year, where Montreal stunned the Argos on that BMO field. And I hope that BMO field's in a little better shape on Saturday. I don't know if you watched that.
Yeah.
What was going on there?
Watch the whole thing, yeah.
No one could really stay afloat there. But
when all else fails, blame Toronto FC.
There we go. Yeah. But that three-headed monster in the backfield for Toronto was well and alive. Kadeem Carey, Deontay McMahon, Daniel Adebaboye. I just like saying those names, so got to rattle them off there. But they all received a bunch of carries. They gashed Hamilton, and we're talking about that on Tap, that if you're looking to exploit Hamilton's defense, maybe through William Stanback, has follow that blueprint like the Argos did last week. But Argos and Alouettes is going to be a big one, right? Montreal can pretty much wrap up the East with the win and kind of keep their momentum going over Toronto, because they're probably going to meet in the postseason one way or another.
Yes, that's right. And Cody Fajardo, he looked nicked up a little bit in their win in Ottawa. He hasn't been limited or anything this week, has he? He's okay. He's full go. That's maybe something to keep an eye on. I don't think he has been, but just a testament to how well Mr. Fajardo has done with Jason Moss in Montreal. No
injury designation.
Not
there we
listed
go.
There. So
they're healthy too. Yeah,
that's good news. And really, if the Alouettes next couple of weeks here, they could pretty much have this wrapped up, right? They will be in a position to perhaps sit him down. Who knows? And Montreal comes here for our last game on the 19th. Maybe it's a situation where they're resting a couple of starters, but they do have one game after that hosting Winnipeg. All right, that's week 17 in the Canadian Football League. Of course, the main event in these parts, Lions and the Tiger Cats Orange Shirt Day game. $25 tickets for adults, $15 for kids 17 and under. Hopefully the rain holds off and the backyard party is not affected by inclement weather, to use a baseball term. All right, we're going for it and punting here, as we always do, to wrap things up. What do you got, Nick?
Mine's road trip themed. So my go for it off the bat here, obviously went to Seaside, Oregon last week, and that's about a 5.5 hour trip from Surrey, British Columbia to Seaside, Oregon. So a lot of time in the car. I don't know if you ever played this game, but I brought it back when we were in the car. It just popped in my head that I was looking at signs and I wanted to play it. But you ever play the alphabet game on road trips?
I don't know if I have. I think I know what you're talking about. Is it when you go in order the alphabet and you say city names?
You have to find a letter. Yeah. So on signs, and vehicles don't count.
So I've not played this.
So
yeah.
It's a fun game. Makes the time go by quicker when you're on that 5.5 hour jaunt over to Seaside there. But so what you do is you start with A, and you have to find a sign where it says A, and that's obviously pretty easy. Like it can say whatever, Astoria, and then you say Astoria aloud and you get A. So whoever gets it first gets it first, and then you move on to B, and so forth. Letters like J, Q, and then Z at the end are very tough to get, right? Because how many times do you see those letters on signs?
On signs, yeah.
A couple games of that kind of brought. I played a lot in my childhood when we drafted Minneapolis and all that for road trips, but brought it back this weekend. It made the time go by quicker. It's also fun, competitive, so nice little road trip.
I'm with you. It
game.
Makes the time go by absolutely. Yeah, that's a good one. Mine is mentioned the weather getting gloomy means it's autumn. You can't beat sports once we get to October. Of course, the Canadian Football League really into high gear, these playoff races. The National Football League 3 weeks in. Baseball playoffs are a week, 10 days away, I believe? Or this is the last weekend in baseball. So this time next week, we'll be talking about the baseball playoffs. Hockey's starting too. The Canucks were on TV just last night. So you really can't beat sports this time of year.
No, and I saw that there's an equinox coming up, right? Too.
Where every league's in action.
Yeah. Here it is right here. September 22nd. Oh, no.
That was last Sunday.
Oh, that's not sports. I'm trying to look this up. Anyways, yeah, but that's when all the leagues play at the same time. So I think there's been about 30 of them in history. And I believe there's one coming up. But yeah, I'm with you there.
Can't beat the time of year. All right, what are you punting?
So I was obviously in America. Again, road trip theme related.
I think I know where you're going here, yes.
There's good things in America and some bad things, but what is going on with the payment process at restaurants and bars?
You're talking about you have to sign for your credit card? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you give the server your credit card.
Yeah.
They take it, give it back to you. You have to do math. It's not like on a machine where it just tells you the percentage-wise and you're tipping. You have to what is going on with that? Why is it different than Canada? Because I think the way Canada has it is so much better.
Well, I'm a little older than you. It used to be like that in Canada too, where before the machines telling you what to tip or what you could tip, you'd have to work it out, write it in, and write the total in.
Why though?
It's one of those things. Why not adapt technology-wise? Well, but it did used to be like that here, though.
We even went to a couple cafes where you walk up and order, and that's the system they had, where you do have the machine and you have the tip percentage in front of you. So I don't know why a lot of restaurants still do this. It's always kind of bamboozled me. Even in bars, they do it. Like if you order like a Coors Light at a bar, they go and take your card. Like
if you want to start a tab, they keep your card, right?
That's normal. I get that. Actually on Sunday we opened up a tab watching some NFL for a bit, and that was I know we were actually watching the kind of demise of your 49ers there, but I don't know if we want to get into that.
Well, no, it's like I'll be honest with you. When I was out doing a bunch of errands. I mean, that was back at work. I worked Sunday, watched the first half. Okay, it's looking pretty good here. I'm going to go out and do some shopping, and we had to go to a family dinner, and then I was following it along. I saw that they were going to blow it. I just laughed. It's like, all you can do is laugh.
Yeah. Shout out Jawan Jennings. That was a
guy's a
game.
stud.
I picked him up in our fantasy league with Moj too, so.
Would have been the Super Bowl MVP had the Niners won, but so... Yeah, we'll see. Talking to Kyle Nelson, knows a thing or two about the 49ers, and he just said, you know what? Try to look at it this way. Normally they get brutally injured later in the year. Hopefully it's just at the start of the year. So
yeah, heal up.
A lot of time left. I'm not crowning the Seattle Seahawks division champions just yet, personally, but we shall see. But yeah, that was all I could do is just laugh at how that game ended. It is what it is.
There you go. What are you putting?
Sambuca shots. Let me explain. I went to my cousin. Congrats to my cousin Marisa and her new husband Duncan. Outstanding wedding out in Abbotsford. Weather miracle. It stopped pouring rain like an hour before the ceremony. So Mother Nature was on their side. But taking a young kid to a wedding, you're always going to leave a bit early. But I would... Let's put it this way. I didn't last very long.
Overserved?
Maybe. Well, I didn't think so at all. So it's the type of thing, a bunch of us were at a hotel nearby, so you don't have to worry about driving back in from Abbotsford, right? So the next morning, we're all kind of at the continental breakfast before checking out, and I was talking to my other cousin, the brother of the bride, hey, so you guys packed it in early last night, huh? And I'm like, yeah, we had to get Libby to bed and, the usual stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I even said I was not feeling too good. I didn't think I was that bad. And then he asked me, he says, were you there when we were doing the Sambuca shots? And I said, yes, I was. I did one Sambuca shot. He's like, that makes sense. Maybe that one shot kind of I was done. So I never really loved the stuff, but I'm punting him now.
It's like straight syrup, though, for those that don't know either. And it's a black
kind
licorice.
Of a black licorice type, which I don't like. So, yeah.
I don't know why, but so my dad's side, my grandparents, one of the first liquors I ever drank was Sambuca. They just had it there, and it's an Italian liquor too. I'm pretty sure.
So this is my mom's side of the family, the Italian side. So it's a tradition. Yeah.
But I have no Italian genes that I know of. Maybe the slick back hair might say otherwise. But my dad's side always just started with Sambuca, and at the neighborhood bar that I would often go to in my neighborhood, Transcona, back in Winnipeg, Sambucas are always $3. So I could tolerate it. They were $3. I was also dangerous. I was in university, so that was always my go-to. And I kind of became known for his Sambuca because when I was playing junior hockey, like, you kind of get, and we do like Secret Santa and all that at Christmas time, I would almost always get a bottle of Sambuca as my gift, just because people knew I'd like it. And I kind of, I've drifted away from that. I've my taste buds have maybe matured a bit, gone on to the wines, the nice local beers. But yeah, Sambuca, I'm with it still.
But not to go into too much detail. So the brother of the groom owns a brewery. I have to confess, I forget what it is, because we're a Molson Coors family here, obviously. But
no free ads.
So they had kegs of this guy's beer was the cocktail hour beer. So yeah, just a couple of those small cups, and you start pouring wine at dinner. Nothing I wouldn't normally do, but yeah, now we know the culprit. So I'm punting those. Can't beat weddings though. Always love going to weddings
in the fall
music,
too. Yeah, nice weekend here, I believe. Right?
It was our daughter's. Nice in Oregon. It was our daughter's first wedding. She loved the glow sticks. It was fun, but
there you go. Yeah.
I had to go to bed early. That's all. All right. Hopefully the BC Lions will not be going to bed early. No Sambuca in the locker room. We don't think. Let's hope not. Lions Tiger Cats Friday. Subscribe, rate, leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to BC Lions on Tap. An outstanding episode with Manny Rugamba this week. We encourage you to check that out. And we will be back to tee up the Gravy Bowl with Calgary. That's going to be a fun one. Nikki, behave. First and now, a presentation of World Vision Canada, our national charity partner. See you next week, folks.